I'm so happy to have Amanda Han joining us. If you missed our webinar last night with Karin Hall, we had a great time talking about how to create wealth through real estate investing and syndication. And of course, Amanda is a brilliant CPA, and she works with we have a lot of mutual clients that are huge, successful people in the syndication space. She's got a best-selling book. I want you to tell people about your book. She is just a super rock star, and I'm so grateful, Amanda, to have you here to talk with us for Bubbles with Bethany. Thank you and welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I didn't know if Bethany for Bubbles meant we were going to drink champagne. So this morning I was looking for like a champagne glass and I couldn't find one. So I brought this. Looks
I
to be
love
a shot
it.
glass, and it actually is.
I love it. I do always have bubbles every week. This week it's actually it's black cherry seltzer because I have to go see the trainer after
Ooh,
this. But sometimes
Nice.
it's champagne. Sometimes it's beer, sometimes it's something else bubbly. I do love the bubbles. So
yeah.
yes, so cheers to the bubbles.
Yes, cheers. I don't
Appreciate
have
you
anything
here.
in here. This was just our prop, but I thought about putting tequila. I ran out of
Great.
time. So you guys, though, who are not speaking or presenting today, you can definitely have some
Yes, I
bubbles and
encourage
tequila.
everyone. I encourage everyone to have the link, or I'm sorry, to have the bubbles somehow or another.
Yeah. You
Um,
definitely need that when you're talking to a CPA and attorney, right? I feel like Bethany and I are the people who like scare the crap out of everybody. So having something relaxing always helps.
sure. Sure, that's actually one of the
Yes.
reasons why we came up with this, is I was like, how can I make it so it's less painful to listen to an attorney for an hour? And I thought bubbles would be it. And Mauricio was like, oh my God, I'm gonna do wine Wednesdays or something. So so instead he just does drunk
Yeah.
real estate. Just he went straight
I was
to it.
gonna say he went
Yeah.
straight to just drunk, not even
It's
wine or bubbles. Just let's just
yeah,
get to the end, which is
straight.
drinking. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh,
Oh, well,
awesome.
I
I'm so
so
glad to be
appreciate it.
here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So every week I ask our guests the same two questions, but it takes the conversation in wildly different ways depending on the answers, which is always fun. So you never really know what you're going to get. The first question, though, that I always ask our guests is, what is your unique superpower?
Oh man. So gosh, I feel so um I think I just sort of realized this in the past year or two myself. So I don't know this to be a fact, but what I think my unique superpower is taking a very complex topic like taxes and simplifying it in a way that everyday real estate investors who are not accountants, not CPAs, can understand. That by itself, I think is just like a skill set, right? I can like simplify complex things, but I do feel like the superpower part of it is that most people just overpay in taxes because they're afraid of taxes. And also just because they don't understand, right? The taxes just, it sounds really scary and intimidating. And so I think it's really important for me and other CPAs and advisors to be able to kind of break it down into everyday language. Because I am of the belief that if an investor understands the benefits of investing and they have a way to understand how to implement things in a simplified or easy format, then a lot more of us could pay less taxes. So I feel like that's sort of my superpower.
I mean, that's a really
Self-proclaimed.
good superpower. No, that's a really good superpower because you're right. I mean, the tax code is crazy complicated. And, I know most of us, myself included, I don't even want to try to interpret all that. It's a huge superpower to be able to take something that is so important and complex and distill it down, not only into something simple, but something that's usable and relatable to everybody as they need it. So like I don't necessarily need to know the parts about the tax code that don't apply to my business. And I do know a lot of professionals still want to tell you all they know, whether you need to know it or not.
Yeah, and I even actually go through that with my team, because we have our team here, most of our people who work here are also investors. They've been practicing CPAs, some of them for decades. And even when I talk to my team, sometimes I'm like, hey, when we talk to clients, we have to really only focus on the important parts of what they need to know, right? So like, I don't need to teach any of you guys how to calculate depreciation because you never need to do it yourself. But it's important for you to understand, like, what does that mean? What does depreciation help you do? What do you need to track as an investor so that your CPA can help you calculate the right depreciation? So I think just for us to understand, like, what do you need to do as an investor versus what you just kind of have to know preliminarily, at a high level, and it makes it a lot less scary and more more in a way where you can actually take action, right? I think people are so afraid when they talk to their tax person. It's like, okay, I don't know what they're saying. I'm just going to smile and nod and then
Yeah.
try to leave this conversation as soon as possible. We want to like not do that.
Yeah, I love that too. I love that when I first talked to you, how out of the gate it was sort of like let's prepare. How do you prepare for you're not just a a tax preparer, but you're also a tax strategist and a tax planner. And it's a little too late when you get to December to figure out what you should have done all year, right? So I think that's one of the things I really love about you is it's like, let's talk strategies now. What can you be doing now? And then how can you be best prepared for us at the end of the year so that we're not scrambling? Because that doesn't have to necessarily be a stressful time for everyone.
Yeah, and I think I see that with a lot of my clients. I'm sure you see that too, Bethany, like, on the syndication side, right? Where at the beginning when I have a client, they're like, "Hey, Amanda, I finally called you. I've been dreading it, but I just knew I had to." And so the starting point is a lot of them telling me how much they hate taxes, how bad their old CPA were. But what I love is like at some point of working together for like a year or 2 years or 3 years, when the clients start to see like the benefits of doing planning and they kind of start to understand what their role is and how simple that actually could be, then they kind of turn the switch where they start to really love taxes, right? They see the savings, they see how real estate is helping them, and it kind of turns into something really positive that they embrace. And, like a lot of our joint clients, right? They're out there on social media and now they're talking about tax strategies and sharing tax strategies, which is great. But I also sometimes cringe because I'm like, are they saying the right things? I'm like always checking up, like, what did they say? Okay, I
Oh,
emailed them. You didn't say it exactly the right way. But it is so interesting to see that shift where the relationship with taxes just turns from something that's like avoidance and scary into something that they really embrace and like, hey, now I know how to use it to my advantage. Might not mean paying zero taxes, but at least with proper planning, you've done all the right things so that you're paying the least amount, right? That you're required to pay.
yeah, and I mean that's the goal, right? And I've seen some of our mutual clients, and they say things on both sides where you're just like, "Ooh, what's it gonna be?" And I know it can be scary, but you've done such a good job of teaching them though, and then they can relay the strategies that I think usually it's pretty good. I think most of our clients like that are pretty coachable too, which I think is is helpful, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think one of my passions really, yeah. I was talking to a gentleman recently, and he was like, "What's your passion? What are you passionate about?" And if you guys heard me before, I always say my passion is in eating and sleeping, and in that order. I love to eat, and then right afterwards, I like to just lay down and go to sleep, which is problematic, right? Because Bethany, you and I are on a fitness challenge right now,
Yeah.
so not doing as much of that. Um, but what I started to realize is like I really have a passion in just like helping educate investors, and just make it, for some people who are my clients, like, we educate them more about like what they can do. But even for people on here who are like not my clients, but just at least understand that taxes doesn't have to be scary. You're not here to become a CPA, nor do you ever need to be, but you really just need to understand like what are some of the things I should be doing on a day-to-day basis or with my CPA to make sure that I'm saving on taxes. And I think Bethany, you talked about planning. I would say 90% or more of people who come to our firm is because they don't get planning from their current tax person. So I think the message is getting out there. The person who's filing your tax return may or may not be doing planning for you. So don't assume that they are. And if you're trying to figure out like, hey, do I have any planning in place? Just ask yourself, like, what is my tax strategy? What am I trying to accomplish? What are some of the things I'm doing to make sure I save on taxes for 2024? And if you don't know it, if you can't really verbalize it, then probably makes sense for you to talk to your CPA about it or seek advice elsewhere from someone who can do.
That's really good advice. And I love that you take these tax strategies and you use it to help people that are trying to grow wealth. They're trying to build their empire. And that was my clunky way of leading into the next question that I always like to ask everybody, which is, what does conscious wealth mean to you?
Oh my gosh, that's such a tough one. For me, I think conscious wealth just means being able to create wealth in like an enjoyable way. I think there are a lot of people who are very wealthy. Some of our clients who are very wealthy, making income at whatever their business, their job, but they're not really super passionate about. But I think if you can combine like something you're passionate about, something that's really enjoyable, but also helping you to build wealth and just kind of helping other people as well. I think that's how I would probably define conscious wealth.
I like that. I like that. I mean it's one thing you always hear people about this sort of hustle and grind culture now, right? And everybody gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning and is doing 75 hard and taking their ice bath with, nothing wrong with any of those things, right? But that is not the only way, I think, to be successful. And I certainly would say too, if that it's not at all enjoyable, why are we doing it? And it's hard. I know there's a balance between like the discipline and the you got to sometimes grind it out. But this toiling for the sake of toiling hustle culture that we've been sort of led to believe is the only way to succeed, I find to be kind of bullshit, actually. And I think there is a way to enjoy what you're doing and be happy and creating wealth at the same time. So I think that is an important distinction to make. So do you love how you're making wealth, Amanda?
Yeah, it's really funny because I was talking to a friend of mine, so one of my best friends from elementary school, and she was telling me like, she's in private equity. So for any of you who are in private equity or know people who work in private equity, it's from like the investment banking side, right? Not real estate, but investment banking side. It's like, a lot of hours. So she's been doing it for like, 10 years and she's gonna be retiring. And so it was really interesting. We had a conversation like, well, why don't you retire too? I'm sure you have enough money to retire. And I was like, wow, nobody ever asked me that. I don't know. I never thought about retiring, but I'm like, yeah, I guess I could retire if I wanted to. But then I was like, I don't know what I would do. I would probably just do the same thing that I'm doing now. But I think for me, that's when I kind of realized like, oh, I really enjoy what I do. Right? But I think on a day-to-day basis, like you said, I'm part of that hustle and grind culture too, where I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, Mauricio woke up at 4. I need to wake up at 4, right? So doing all
Oh
those
yeah.
things.
Yes,
Um,
I know.
but really just like I think in that just random conversation with a friend, was like, oh, made me more like self-reflect. Like, yeah, I guess I could, retire, quote unquote, but I really want to keep doing what I do and really want to like keep doing more of it.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's how you know you've chosen the right path. And Joe, thank you for sharing. So Joe's in the chat, and first of all, thank you. She says it's awesome to get to hear from a CPA and attorney. So yay, thanks for lying to
Yeah.
us. Appreciate it. And she also says perhaps a very deliberate and purpose-driven focus in what we do. And so being able to enjoy making a living at something we really enjoy doing. Absolutely. Yes. And nerds unite always. I love that. That's fantastic.